Princess here from StampWithLorraine.com. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the US, and I'd like to share with you today a really quick, easy card that uses some DSP. Stampin' Up! Makes gorgeous designer series paper. That's what the DSP stands for. And it is so easy just to make that paper the star of the show. Simple cutting instructions I have for you. No crazy measurements at all. Basically, you need a card base, you need a colored cardstock, and you need a piece of designer series paper, and we're going to actually use both sides of it. That's one thing that's great about the Stampin' Up! Paper. You have two sides and you can really make use, they coordinate so nicely together. We're going to see how to simply make a quick and easy card just using these pieces. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up down below if you liked the video. Don't forget to go to StampWithLorraine.com and sign up for my newsletter and see some other tutorials and some helpful hints right there too. So thanks again for watching, and stay tuned to the end. You know I show you tons of examples. So hope you enjoy it. And we're starting with half a sheet of cardstock for a card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5. And then we're going to score that at 4 1/4. And you want to burnish that seam that folds nice and firm. Okay, and then we want a layer of white, 5 1/4 by 4, so it's a 1/4 inch smaller than your card base. Okay, and I might be going a little slower today because I have some people crafting along with me. But I like to keep, I think I've mentioned this before, I keep a little cello bag with this size paper pre-cut because I use it a lot. I use it for the insides of my cards, and I use it for this layer very often. So sometimes when I just want to catch up on my stock, I will just sit and cut this size. I just label it here 1/4 sheet, but it's really a little less than a 1/4 sheet. But I'd like to keep that handy because when you're in the middle of the creative process, you don't necessarily want to stop and have to cut these size papers. Okay, so keep it handy. It's a good tip. Okay, so then you'll need a piece of designer series paper that is 3 3/4 wide by 5 inches tall. 3 3/4 by 5. And think of how you want your card oriented. You can have it vertically like this, or you can have it horizontally. These are the trees, so I have it vertically myself, but it can go either way. So think about the direction you want your card to be and the pattern on your paper. So basically that is just a 1/4 size smaller than your layer. Okay, and then we're going to cut that on a diagonal. So with your paper trimmer and your 3 3/4 by 5, we're going to cut from one corner to the opposite corner. So you're going to line up your point right in that groove of your cutter, and then same thing down here, and you're going to hold it firmly. Now what I like to do is, I don't like to, I'll call it attack start the cut from the point, because you have a chance of kind of smushing it. Okay, because it's a point where at another point you might just kind of damage the nice sharp edge at that point. So I start someplace in the middle without moving my paper. You have to hold it firmly, or if you feel like you need to, attach it with a Post-it note or some washi tape. And I'll start the cut in the middle and go out, and then I'll finish up in the other direction. Otherwise it damages that corner. Okay, so now you have two triangles like that, right? Now we're going to turn it the opposite direction, keeping them together, and we're going to cut in the opposite direction. Now this is a little more tricky in holding it together, but you can always, if you want, tack it down with some washi tape, or take a Post-it note to help hold it together. Okay, I find I can hold it pretty well, but if you want, you can just kind of do this. It might help a little bit, but you want to make sure it stays together, both ends, and your points are in the groove. All right, so then the same thing, I'm going to start kind of in the middle, work out, and then go down the other way. And now you'll have 4 triangles. Carefully pull off your Post-it or your washi tape. And I think I mentioned in my last video that Stampin' Up! Is coming out with something called masking paper, which is kind of like the Post-it notes, has a light tackiness, but it's whole sheets of it. So you can cut little pieces if you want. You can use it to mask things. You can die cut some things out of your paper and use it as a mask, and it will stay down nicely. Okay, obviously our Post-it notes only have the stickiness on the top, so it makes it a little tricky sometimes. So I'm anxious to try that new masking paper. That should be fun. Okay, so now on your card, you're going to rebuild that rectangle again, but now you're just going to flip over two of your pieces so you can decide which pattern you want on the sides or which pattern you want on the top and bottom. And we're just going to fit it together like this, leaving a little bit of a gap in between there. Okay, so think about which way you want. I like to play with it, try both ways, see what it looks like. Okay, you know what? I am going to put it this way. Okay, so it might depend on what direction you want to put your sentiment and a little thing in the middle. So if you're going vertically, okay, notice I chose the tall dinosaur for this one so that the pattern of his head didn't get lost in all of this busy pattern over here. It showed up more against here. So that's something to think about. And I did the opposite here for the same reason. I chose the dinosaur that went this way so that, again, it doesn't get caught in too busy of a pattern. It shows up nice against there. So because I'm going to be putting a horizontal sentiment here, I'm going to keep the wood grain on the sides so that it can go this way and not cover up too much of that pattern up there. Okay, decided. So now we just have to glue it all down. So I would just line it up a little bit, get an idea of how much space you have to leave on the top and the side edges and the bottom. And then we can start gluing it down, just trying to leave a similar gap in between each one, kind of like tiles. Okay, I'm just going to glue those down. So it's an easy, simple way to just use your designer paper and benefit using both sides. And you can get 6 of this size out of a 12 by 12 sheet. So how cool is that? And make sure you get your adhesive to the points because you don't want your points coming up and getting caught on things later or just looking sloppy. But remember, just very thin beads of glue, whatever you're using. You don't want it to ooze out. Okay, so there you have sort of a tile looking thing, but just cut on the diagonal. Okay, instead of your typical squares. All right, and then we can glue that onto our card base. Unless you want to tie a ribbon around, you do that first. I'll show you one where I did that. Okay, so now you have that on there. And I stamped a sentiment. I shouldn't have mentioned, I used the Beauty of Friendship stamp set and the Beauty of the Earth Designer Series paper that has all these nice trees and leaves and kind of fall colors. Very pretty. These are leaving the 2021, 22 annual catalog. So just a few more days to purchase that. The stamp set is staying, but the paper will not be staying. Okay, so now we want to put something, our sentiment, or as I did with the dinosaurs, you can add an image, a die cut, you could stamp something. I happen to use my oval punches for this, but you can just cut a square, a rectangle, whatever you like to put on there. So a couple options I had was to, I stamped Thinking of You from the stamp set onto Old Olive, that's my card base. And I wanted to bring in some other texture on here. So I like this nice wide ribbon, and it has, you know, this little, it's frayed ribbed ribbon. And so I thought, well, you know, we're going to maybe put that on there, just bring a little extra texture, because, you know, wood has texture and a little bit rustic kind of a look. And then I also want to bring in some twine. So I'm going to just kind of wrap this around a little bit, wrap around my finger, make some loops. This is not twine, this is the linen thread. Okay, and kind of loose and not all equal little loops there. I'm going to actually flip this over. I'm going to bring up my silicone mat, turn that over, and I'm going to add a few glue dots there to help hold it on. I like to just peel it back one glue dot at a time. May as well put them on all. Because we're sticking onto fabric, I'm going to put some extra ones because sometimes you need that little extra adhesive. Using the Snail Plus would be an excellent thing to do right here. I happen to run out. I was making some pretty boxes for my VIP group ladies. I used up a lot of my Snail Plus. I need to order another refill. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap those edges around and stick them on so that those glue dots help hold it together, okay? Just in a random way. Then I'm going to add some more on top of that so that it can hold on to my card. You can use glue also. I might add a little glue just for a little extra assurance. Couldn't hurt, right? To make sure it all stays together. Okay, the glue dots help as you're building it. You don't get sticky fingers all over the place. All right, I'm going to stick that onto my ribbon. So this is, I have a rubber band holding this here. This is the frayed ribbon, just called frayed ribbon. It comes in white, and it does fray a lot. So if you want even more rustic look, just, you know, start pulling this apart, and you can get an even more frayed look to there. Okay, and then we're going to stick that right in the center on the center of our card. You can place it anywhere you like, above, below. Like I said, if your card's horizontal, you can place this anywhere that you feel works for you. Okay, and I am going to add a lot more glue dots on here. I don't always like using my liquid glue on some ribbon because it can soak through. So glue dots, dimensionals. If your part of your ribbon is going to be covered with something else, like I could do it underneath my sentiment here, that would be fine. But the glue dots work nicely and it's a little cleaner. And I'm going to put that right there, and I have what could be a nice masculine card, right? And remember, you can also take your Stampin' Blend and color your ribbons too. You can just take your marker, go over it, and it could, if you don't want white, you can do something else on that. All right, so that gives, you know, the added texture, the implied texture of the wood grain. It doesn't really feel textured, but then adding the other stuff. I thought that was kind of fun. Okay, so then let me just do another quick idea with the new, from the new 2022 to 23 annual catalog. Nature's Prints, this is one of my favorites, has a couple of different sprays of leaves here and a little flower, a little splotchiness, and I love these fonts here, something a little bit different, right? More artsy look, okay? So we're going to use, okay, it's called Sun Prints, and it has these white images on the darker backgrounds, tying in with the ferns that coordinates with the stamp set, in several different colors. And we're going to do the one that is Starry Night, which is a new in color, and Gray Granite. So the Starry Night on one side, Gray Granite on the other, and I'll do this one a little quicker, and you'll see how quick and easy this can go. And those of you who are crafting along can have a little time to finish up your cards. Okay, so this pattern obviously can go either way, up, down, sideways. So I'm going to just cut my first diagonal like this. Quick review, start in the middle, out, and then up, and do it the other way around. Hold it together, point in the groove, point in the groove. Use your post-it note if you like to help hold it. I'll make sure these are meeting up down here. Hold it together, start from the middle, out and down. Okay, I'm going to mount that on white again. I'll show you some that I mounted on a color and had a white base, because that can certainly work as well. Okay, so I'm going to just flip these over, glue them down. Oh, if when you're cutting your paper cutter, your trimmer, obviously your blade is pushing down into the paper, so it's naturally going to have a little bit of an indentation here, and you probably can't see on the camera, but I can see that there's a little bend to the paper. So one thing I like to do on the part that's down, take my bone folder again and just kind of work that out, or sometimes just with my finger, just to kind of flatten it out again, because I could see this was the opposite direction of how I cut it. I could see it's kind of pushing down over here. Sometimes I just take my fingernail and straighten that out so it has a little bit more polished look to it. Okay, so this one happened. I like the reverse side of it. Sometimes you might just want to choose a different DSP, but then you'll have two cards out of it, right? All right, and I already did the inside of this. I stamped some of the ferns from the Nature's Prints, and we'll put this on the front. I love this color combination. This is Starry Sky and the Gray Granite. Starry Sky's new in color. Look how pretty that is. Okay, then I took a rectangle from Stitch So Sweetly, another die cut set that I absolutely love, and it is retiring, so I'm sad to see that go. I'm going to just put that right in the middle. You could put this up with dimensionals if you like. And you can stamp something on there. I had considered a particular saying. I was thinking of the hello there, but then I'm thinking, well, I don't know exactly what I'll use this for, so I'm just going to make it a note card with a pretty front, and I'll write something in it later. And I chose these two dies that coordinate with the stamps, so stamp them and die cut them. You can get those as a bundle, and these are sort of on the big side, so I just wanted to have that as a focal point there. So I'm just going to put those up with some dimensionals. Okay, so like I said, you go either way with this. I'll show you a couple more that I've already done, give you some ideas. So let me think how I want these. Oh, maybe I'll actually glue this one down first, so that's in the background, this one over. Yeah, I think I'll do that. I'm also going to just snip the bottom. Don't want it that long. Okay, kind of adjust how I want this to be. This can come over. Keep that to the side. Put that on top. Okay, so there you have a nice card. You can always add a little tag, something over there. Like, I'm sure we have tons of little half-inch strips. I can always add a sentiment and put it on top across there if I wanted it. I just think it's so pretty just as it is. I brought this down in here. I'm going to share a secret. I stamped this down here and I caught a little bit of the edge of the stamp. So the way to fix a little oops, I just kind of stamped a border of the ferns going down the side. I think that looks pretty too. Okay, so just to cover up a little mistake. So there we go. So we have that one. This is another one I did from the same DSP as we did this card. So that was the beauty of the earth. And so this one captures sort of like the sky and the bright colors to have a really big contrast here. Again, stitched so sweetly for the sentiment. And the stamp is the same as the beauty is the friendship. Friendships refresh the soul. And I added little butterflies on there. Here's yet another example using the artistically inked stamp set, the coordinating designer series paper, Expressions in Ink, which is retiring May 2nd of 2022. The stamp set is sticking around. And then this is the card using one sheet of that DSP and just flipping over the other side. So look at how beautiful you have those colors in there. This is Magenta Madness, and it uses the thanks from the same stamp set. I tied, before I put this white layer on, I tied the crinkle seam binding ribbon around the card. I actually didn't even tie it. I made a bow first out of a separate piece and then just glued down the ribbon horizontally, attached it to the back, and then put my bow on with glue dots. So I didn't have to worry about fussy tying it and getting it tight. So kind of like a nice little trick there. And of course I brought some of that flower on the inside to make the inside pretty as well. Okay, and the last one I have for you now uses the hand penned petals and the coordinating designer series paper. This is one of my favorites, and sad to see that go in this 2022 catalog as well. The new one, you will have a lot of other beautiful designer series papers, typical of Stampin' Up. So sad to see our favorites go, but there are still more favorites to come. So using this set, I created this card. This is the same piece of DSP, just flipped over, and I stamped, as you can see, I stamped this image. This is a two-step image. You have the outline, and then you have the other pieces that fill in, that you can stamp with a color and just fill in, so you don't have to color it or use markers or whatever. So just kind of just adds your color on there for you. So I stamped it, and then with my circle die, my layering circles, I decided which part I wanted to save and just die cut that out, mounted it with some mint macaron, and added my sentiment across here like a little banner. So if you noticed, this one and this one I mounted on a colored cardstock, and then the card base is the white. On the others, I mounted the designer series paper on white and had the color for the background for the card base. So you can do it either way. It depends on whether your DSP is light or dark, or if you want white in between, you want a colored in between. So mix it up, play around with it, see what works for you, and enjoy this technique. It's a lot of fun. Uses up your DSP, and look how quick and easy it is. Beautiful cards. Thanks again for watching.